Welcome to the English Mature with JB podcast. Today, we are taking an in-depth look at a concept that has, well, it's really just exploded into public consciousness over the last few years.
Oh, absolutely. The term gaslighting.
Exactly. And if you're listening and feeling maybe confused or anxious or, like you constantly have to apologize for things you didn't even do, this deep dive is definitely for you.
It's so relevant right now. The term became so dominant that Merriam-Webster actually named it their 2022 Word of the Year.
Wow.
Yeah, lookups for the term jumped by an astonishing 1,740%. So this isn't just a buzzword. It reflects how many people are recognizing this insidious practice.
A kind of psychological warfare, or even a subtle type of bullying.
It is. It's designed to make you question your own mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to move past just the definition and really understand the mechanics of this abuse. We're drawing on mental health advocacy articles and some historical context.
Right, to give you the essential tools to identify the techniques and, crucially, defend against this emotional erosion.
So to get started, we have to talk about the history, right? Because the name itself is so unique.
It is. It's one of the few psychological concepts that's actually named after a work of fiction.
The 1944 film Gaslight. Remember, the premise was it's terrifyingly specific.
It really is. It was based on a stage play from 1938. In the story, a woman named Paula marries a man, Gregory Anton.
And he moves her into the house where her wealthy aunt was murdered years earlier, which is already a huge red flag.
A huge one. And Gregory is secretly obsessed with finding the aunt's hidden jewels. So to get his wife out of the way, he needs to convince her and everyone else that she's losing her mind.
And he does this in these really subtle ways.
So subtle. He moves a picture, then denies it. He hides small items. But the most iconic part, the thing that gives it its name, involves the lighting.
The gaslights.
Exactly. They used gaslights back then, and Gregory would sneak up to the attic to search for the jewel.
And doing that would drop the gas pressure in the whole house.
Right. So the lights on the main floor would visibly dim and flicker.
So when his wife, Paula, points this out, what did he do?
He would insist that the lights were perfectly fine. He'd tell her she was imagining it, that she was seeing things that weren't there.
So he's constantly questioning her memory, her perception.
Until she genuinely believes she's having a breakdown and relies completely on him to tell her what's real.
That movie is just the perfect metaphor. So if we pull that pattern out of Victorian London and into today's world, how do our sources formally define it?
At its core, gaslighting is psychological manipulation, and it's usually sustained over a long period of time.
Okay.
The goal is simple: to make the victim question the validity of their own thoughts, their perception of reality, or their memories. It's an attempt by one person to basically overwrite another person's reality.
So it's not just about winning an argument. The goal is much bigger. It's total psychological control.
Precisely. The outcome for the victim is confusion, intense self-doubt, a loss of confidence, and an increased dependency on the perpetrator.
Because the victim believes only the perpetrator can define what's true.
That dependency is the gaslighter's power source.
That brings us to a really crucial distinction then. Because gaslighting gets confused with simple manipulation all the time. Like, if my boss uses flattery to get me to work late, is that the same thing?
That's just general manipulation, which is, a much broader strategy.
Okay.
Manipulation is aimed at changing specific behaviors or decisions. Your boss flatters you because they want to influence your decision to stay late. They're focused on that one outcome.
But gaslighting targets something much more fundamental than just a behavior.
It does. Gaslighting's purpose is to change who someone is, to damage their ability to trust their own mind, their experience of reality. They aren't trying to influence one decision, they're trying to influence your entire sense of self.
What's really fascinating, and frankly more terrifying, is that the sources say this doesn't always have to be some deliberate evil plot.
Not necessarily, no. It doesn't have to be a conscious strategy to be cruel. It only requires a foundational belief by the perpetrator that it's okay, or even necessary, to overwrite someone else's reality.
And so when that person feels threatened, or their narrative is challenged.
The gaslighting can just happen organically as a kind of defense mechanism.
So the damage is real, regardless of the intent. And I guess that's what makes that frog in the frying pan analogy so perfect here.
It is the perfect analogy. The abuse is insidious. It happens so gradually. It's a lie here, a snide comment there.
The heat is turned up so slowly.
So slowly that the victim doesn't realize the gravity of what's happening until they're just deep in that cycle of self-doubt and isolation.
Okay, let's talk about the techniques then, the red flags. if you're trying to protect yourself from this kind of psychological bullying, what are the common tactics?
The primary rule our sources stress is this. Always look at what the person is doing rather than what they're saying.
Because the words are designed to confuse you.
Exactly. But their actions expose the attempted to control.
So what's the number one tactic? The one that starts that erosion of reality?
It's just blatant denial and lying. They'll tell you outright lies, or they'll deny they ever said something, even when you have proof.
And they say it was such confidence.
Right.
A completely straight face.
Stone cold straight face. And it sets the stage for you to start questioning your own memory. This technique is sometimes called countering.
The classic, you're wrong, you never remember things correctly, they just turn it back on you.
Precisely. The second major tactic is trivializing or dismissing your feelings. If you express that you're hurt or frustrated, they make those feelings seem unimportant.
Right, the classic lines like, you're being too sensitive, or I was only joking, lighten up.
Yes, they're basically saying you're faulty for having a normal reaction. They're minimizing the emotional injury.
What else?
Well, there's also blocking and diverting. This is when they just want to stop an uncomfortable conversation. So they might pretend not to understand you, or they'll change the subject or say things like, I don't want to hear this again.
Anything to get off the topic they don't like.
Uh-huh.
And then there's one that's especially damaging in relationships. Projection.
Projection is when they accuse you of the exact negative behavior that they are doing.
So if they're the one being dishonest,
They'll constantly accuse you of being the dishonest one. It's a powerful distraction. You spend all your energy defending yourself instead of noticing what they're actually doing.
and of course the most direct attack, telling the victim they are crazy.
This is a devastating tool because if they can convince you, and more importantly, other people, that you're unstable, then no one will believe you if you try to speak out.
They cut off your support system before you can even use it.
They do. They plant that doubt early on. It's all in your head, or you need professional help.
I want to ask about something that seems counterintuitive. Positive reinforcement. Why would an abuser ever offer praise?
This is a calculated move to keep you tethered and confused. They'll throw in praise, but usually only for something that directly served their needs.
For example,
For example, if you finally do something exactly the way they wanted, they might shower you with praise.
that creates an incredible emotional whiplash, doesn't it? One minute you're insane, the next you're brilliant.
Exactly. It's psychological destabilization. It makes you think, well, maybe they aren't so bad, or if I just behave perfectly, they'll be nice to me.
It keeps you hooked.
It does. Some call it glamour gaslighting. They put you on a pedestal, but only for a moment, and they're never there when you actually need genuine support. It leaves you feeling hollow and off balance.
When this whole cycle repeats, the impact on the victim must be devastating. What's the emotional toll?
The list is long. Constant confusion, intense anxiety, always apologizing for things that aren't your fault, having trouble making simple decisions.
You feel like you're not yourself anymore.
Victims report feeling fundamentally unlike their usual self. Less confident, more anxious, hopeless.
And we have to talk about the memory effect, because victims often blame themselves for having a bad memory.
Yes, and this is a shocking but crucial point for anyone listening. It is normal to lose your memory when you're being gaslit. Your brain is under sustained trauma.
So people report things like blacking out during conversations.
Blacking out, or just not being able to remember what an argument was about a few days later.
So when the abuser says, I can't trust your memory, the victim starts to believe it because they actually are experiencing memory loss.
It becomes a terrible self-fulfilling prophecy. Your brain is trying to block out the trauma, and that gives the gaslighter's claims this devastating plausibility in your own mind.
The sources outline 3 stages for how the victim's internal reality shifts during this. It's like a map of the descent.
In stage 1, you're still fighting for your reality. You believe yourself, but you're constantly arguing, trying to be understood. But every time you argue, you're putting your reality up for debate.
Then, in stage 2, the fight changes. It's not about facts anymore.
Correct. In stage 2, you start considering the gaslighter's point of view first. You argue because you want to prove to them that you're still good, kind, and worthwhile.
It's about defending your character in their eyes.
Yes. And stage 3 is the tragic point where the self-doubt takes over completely.
And the gaslighting has achieved its goal.
That's when, if you get hurt, your first internal question isn't, what did they do, but what's wrong with me? You lose your ability to make your own judgments. Their distorted view becomes your normal.
If someone listening recognizes themselves in these stages, what is the core strategy for defense? for reclaiming their reality.
The end game is not confrontation. Confrontation is their fuel. The core strategy is non-engagement and firm boundaries.
You have to stop arguing.
Arguing with a gaslighter tells them that your reality is up for discussion. It is not. You have to deny them that emotional reaction they're looking for.
But that has to be incredibly difficult, especially if you're afraid of their reaction to your silence. How do you manage that?
That is a critical challenge. The pain of setting that boundary is immense. But the moment you stop fighting for your reality with them, you start fighting for your reality within yourself.
You're taking your power back.
You are. You reclaim all that energy you're using for defense and you redirect it toward yourself.
So the most practical tool, then, must be collecting evidence to confirm your own reality.
Absolutely. Not to prove it to others necessarily, but to prove it to yourself.
Who does that look like?
Saving texts and emails, taking screenshots, writing down specific quotes with dates and times right after a conversation happens. You create a record.
That record becomes your external proof that your gut feeling was right, even when your mind is confused.
It's your anchor to reality. And where it's legally permissible and safe, recording conversations can be a lifeline, especially for dealing with that trauma-induced memory loss we talked about.
Can you give us some simple, firm phrases to shut down the dynamic without getting pulled into an argument?
Simple boundary statements work best. Things that don't invite debate. For instance, we will have to agree to disagree on this.
Simple, direct.
Or when you feel that confusion setting in, I don't like how I feel right now and I want to finish this conversation later or perhaps never.
I like that. Or perhaps never. It signals that the conversation is closed.
And maybe the most direct one for when they try to tell you how you feel is, you're trying to tell me what my experience is and I'm not okay with that.
That draws a very clear line. Finally, let's talk about the traits that can make people susceptible, like empathy or being a people pleaser. The gaslighter often frames these as weaknesses.
They absolutely do. They'll call you weak or too emotional, but you have to reframe this. These traits are not weaknesses. They are emotional superpowers.
So the problem isn't the trait itself.
No, the problem is when you're willing to change yourself for the wrong reasons, change should make you stronger, not fill you with fear or shame. When you use your empathy to set a boundary, that's strength.
This has been such an important deep dive. The key distinction we've learned is that general manipulation attacks your behavior, but gaslighting attacks your fundamental reality.
And recognizing that difference is the first crucial step towards psychological freedom.
So as a final thought,
If you're struggling with this self-doubt, remember, even when your mind is tangled in confusion, your core truth is still there. That internal alarm system, that feeling in your stomach that something was wrong, it always worked. You were just taught to stop listening to it.
the pain of growth, of setting boundaries and walking away, is so different from the slow, corrosive pain of staying. Trust that initial instinct. Listen to that internal alarm and use these tools to reclaim your reality.